I wouldn't say it's maybe a mistake, whatever. But when you speak about the editing in a TV show that is supposed not only to attract people, but to make them laugh, it's not like a comedy, like a film. It's a moment of reality that editor brings sometimes a sense of mockery against someone. Sometimes you can judge this guy or this woman is a phony. There is also, it's also part of TV, so it's also supposed to give you some information about the world. Even if it's a very funny emission, the people that are invited are either in the politics, either famous stars that come not because they have something to say, but just because they have something to sell, you know what I mean? So the complete thing is to break their ego a little bit so that the audience can see a little more of what they should, you know? It has to be like that, a little bit voyeuristic, huh? And funny. I think a film can be funny and voyeuristic also, but it's there is no, the people who are in the film, actor, actress, amateur, comedian, are not trapped. They know, or they're supposed, part of the process, and they are in charge with us, the people who make the film, like the film, to convey that feeling to the audience, you know. It's not, they are not going to be surprised naked. And it's very interesting what you said, because as I left you yesterday, suddenly the TV was functioning in my room. I don't know why, but so I watched, and it was a Italian program about people who are resisting to the Berlusconi television. And they were explaining, it was a group of women explaining that in the Berlusconi television system, you don't even bother with being funny or not, to be political or not. You can do everything if you have girls, pupilla, bimbo, on stage, doing it, nothing. Huh? So if I draw the frame, you have two guys speaking about the oil is costing much more, and how they do we use another energy, blah, blah, blah. And you have there, seated there, two girls half naked with extremely exaggerated busts, like surgery and lips and everything. They are just doing small movements, like it's completely amazing. And then they walk with the string, and they walk, and they change something, and they come back, and they call veline. Veline means plant or flower, like, you know, you put on your balcony. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And it's a must. So if you have also then a map to tell you the temperature and the weather forecast, you know, for the next day. The girl also has to be, you know, and then this program, I saw a little part of it, and now Berlusconi took some of them, and some of them became, they were so famous on TV that they became now deputy. They were elected in Lombardia. So those women were fighting against that, and some of them were ex-Veline, you know, who have decided to quit, and they explain, you know. But it's interesting to see that the storytelling or the narration or the rhythm of whatever has to attract the audience on a very short time with no narration in a way, just on the spot an image, a bus, a butt, lips, something that will stop the image for you a few seconds. Maybe you don't hear so much what the two guys are saying, and each 2-3 minutes they will have to say something horrible to one of the girls, like, hey, move your ass off my table, or things like that, so that there is a little brutality to go to the next scene, you know. This is interesting. This is interesting because even in porno movie, there is a sort of narration, even if it's light, you know. Somehow they have to, you cannot have just close-up. There is a little need of something more, you know. So I think maybe Fellini was right. TV is going to be a very I think Fellini foresee exactly what's happening in the Italian TV. And I don't mean that French TV is so much better, but I think Italian TV is extraordinary now, you know. It came to a point that you don't know it is possible, you know. I think film, short or long film, still have to think about narrative. But now it's the second part of what I wanted to tell you. Narration could be a sort of law to have everything in place and order at its place. Like the climax should be like, let's say you have the A to B story, so you have, let's say, Truffaut used to say, the audience gives you 20 minutes. Right. So Truffaut used to say, you have 20 minutes, you can do whatever you want, it's free, it's a present from the audience. So let's say today it will be less than 20 minutes. This is the opening. But in a general narration, this should give you information normally. And the climax should be somewhere there, so that the ending slowly takes you slowly to the ending. But you could also have the same type of narration with here not an explanation, not a prologue, the opening scene could be the more violent moment of the film, the explosion of the film, let's say a murder, for instance, and the complete narration. It's a lot of TV series are made like that. Huh? You have the terrible murder scene there, and all this time is to find why would he do it. Huh? So, of course, with some little surprise and maybe also a climax there that in the end you think the murder was committed by this person, but no, suddenly this is exactly not, it's a different person. But you can also have the same opening like that, and the climax could be here, like in a Michael Mann movie, you know? Tom Cruise is dead here in the subway all alone. You don't need, yeah, you can see Jenny walking away tired, but the end is really the death of Tom Cruise, and you know nothing else will happen, you know? So this is very much also a very, very effective narration that doesn't follow completely the classical rules, you know? But if you take a lot of film of the last 10 years, you have the ending there, and from there you could have 2 or 3 tracks, and then it leads you to questions, and then in the end, the echo to this, you know? So I think there is many, there is a form, or let's say, you realize this, in fact, is in the past. It doesn't seem like. And everything now is going to explain why this happened. Or if it's a flashback, as I said when I was explaining to you the Aller au Diable, I would have started to nowadays and then go backward, you know. This is possible. Or like in Tree of Life, for instance. You have seen Tree of Life? No.
But I don't want to.
Well, Tree of Life is it's impossible. The story is this, the story of a family in the 50s. 3 boys, mother and father, a good Protestant family, and the father is very strict, the mother is great, and 3 boys, and the eldest son believe his father prefer his second son. The plot is family little things, you know, nothing. There is one important moment there when the father lost his job because they have to move, and this is a very dramatic moment. But this is the story, and there you have the Big Bang, the creation of the solar system, and then meeting of 2 dinosaurs who, instead of killing each other, didn't kill each other. And then here, you jump from that to the mother of that story, but not in the 50s, in the 70s, which is in the time somewhere there, receiving a letter that the second son has been killed in Vietnam. You just see her receiving a letter, you don't know what is it, she cried, and then she phoned her husband, was a new job, and who cries. And then in that part, you see the birth of the Swiss son, and the growth of the Swiss son. So this is forward. This is before. This should be there.
Yeah.
And there, in the gap, you have small moment of today in a big city like, let's say, Houston, a city like that, where Sean Penn is acting like the eldest son, the jealous guy, who is today trying to reconsider why he was so jealous of his brother who died in Vietnam long ago, you know. Then you go back to this today often, I mean not often but sometimes, and in the end you have a part that is come from Sean Penn, from today, that is a sort of place. It's not a paradise, it's a sort of limbo place where he will find his brother who was killed in Vietnam as a child and give it back to his mother. You know? But this is like, of course, a non-existing place, even less physically existing as Big Bang, because Big Bang somehow we all almost have image, you know. This now is, you know. So I think this is interesting to see what a narration can be. And maybe it was not written exactly like that. Maybe the editing moved the Sean Penn today into the story. I don't know. But I think it's interesting to realize that narration is not to disobey the law, it's to find a sort of rule that will work for the kind of story you're interested to tell. And not to think, as you said, that because the woman doesn't think, you don't know at that time what she's thinking. The woman of Tree of Life, she's not the mother. She's like a saint. There is even one moment she's so much a saint that she flies. We never know what she's thinking. But she's the mother. Maybe a small naive image, but doesn't matter, you know. I think narration is really free, but of course it has to answer not a law, but rules that you invent for that storytelling. And after only you can decide if it's experimental, non-experimental, non-narrative. But narrative it will be. As far as I've been searching what is non-narrative, you know, almost everything is. As long as you have editing.
Non-narrative would just be the Berlusconi television. That would be an example of non-narrative. The Italian television.
No, I think it's very narrative. I think it's telling exactly what a guy who owns all the TV media wants to do with politics and what is reflection upon being a woman in Italy. No, I think it's a very, as you say, Catherine Barma was editing, and no, I think Berlusconi is really giving his own narration of Italy today. Big breast, big lips, doing nothing, you know, and men are making money. It's a very interesting narration in a way, you know. I think it could be disgusting, but let's say Brian De Palma could have made a film like that, you know. He had made film of the sort 20 years ago, I think.
Do we want to
But it's different narration because it's TV. Do we want a break?
Yeah.
The plan was to make a film, a documentary for TV, German TV, but asking someone if he would accept to have his smartphone cracked open and to be able to retrace like exactly 2 years of his life, because you can map his life for 2 years. We met, where he went, at what time, what train ticket, and one person accept, you know. And then it became so strange that in the end they could also, by following knew where he was going the next day, the day after, maybe in let's say, having a week of vacation in Egypt, 2 weeks after. And so suddenly they were waiting for him before he arrived some places, you know. And I think it's a nightmare. It's like a George Orwell story, maybe. And yet, it is something possible. It is something completely possible. If you are a police agent and you want to track down someone, you would know even what he's reading, even what he has been eating. I think so. Maybe to go back to YouTube, I would say, of course, narration. During the break, we were speaking about flashback. Flashback is a terribly classic form of explaining what happened before. You see, let's take a character. He has a scar, and you film one of the other characters showing the scar, and the flashback can come suddenly where he was wounded during the war, let's say in Vietnam or whatever. But it could also be the character who have the scar to tell the other, yes, I was wounded in Vietnam, I was with my best friend who died then, and this scar means a lot to me because it's all I have left from my friend who died next to me instead of me, you know. And so flashback, and you see the friend died, you know. Flashback is like a sort of a figure, like in ballet. You have 5 positions for feet. I mean, flashback is also a figure. That's why I laugh a lot when I heard that 2 years ago the people who did invent Lost, they were now considering it was so boring that they wanted to change, and they were exploring now a new form. It's not new, but a form of telling a story by flash forward. You know, Although when I did white material, not knowing that, I had a scene that was a flash forward. And I like the scene, I enjoy filming the scene, I like the result in the editing room. Nobody understood the flash forward. I mean, the people I asked, the editor, yes, of course, you know. But then people who were, I said, it's a flash forward. You don't understand. So in the end, I cut it, you know. Not because I wanted to obey the law of narration, but because suddenly it became a sort of distraction. Me, I wanted, like, sometime in your life, suddenly you fear something. You say, I was wrong right from the beginning. I should have done that. Now, I'm sure my son is in trouble. Let's say, this is something very real, very normal, very natural. But it's really difficult to express in film without a voiceover, just by the pure fact of editing. Because a flash forward, as it said, it's a vision of the future. It's not a voiceover that takes you to probably. No, flash forward is flash. But sometimes it doesn't work. Also, it was working very well for me. And I had no doubt when we were writing, no doubt when we were shooting, no doubt when we were editing. And only at the end, the film was finished, the music was composed and everything. Too many people told me about it, that it was a little bit difficult to accept it was a flash forward.
They had this whole TV series that only lasted, I think, one year, where it was called Flash Forward, and everyone in this show passes out and they dream of this future event. So the entire show is trying to reach or not reach this future event, because some people didn't have anything, so they assume that they died if they don't have a flash forward, blah, 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 blah. But it didn't last that long.
But then, I know what you mean, but then it became like a prediction.
Yeah.
Or like trying to read the future. If you speak in terms of narration, if you take a flashback for what it is, it's to allow the film to show something that is past and it does not exist on the same time that the present, but will, in the narration will be edited next to the present. So you can say it's a souvenir, it's a vision of the past, whatever. In the narration, in the film, you put next to each other, you edit next to each other, the present and the past. Flash forward should be the same in a way, you know. If it's a prediction, I'm Taurus, so I've been told that Venus entered my son, so maybe next month, you know. This could be a sort of flash forward, but it's not fun. I mean, it's not fun. It's, or let's say it's prediction, forecasting, then maybe you're a witch and you can say, ooh, I can see your future, you know? This is not flash forward, this is a different way of imagining. First of all, it means either it's funny, either you don't believe in it, you know, either this prediction, bad sign, I've seen a black cat, wow, something terrible, you know. Flash forward, it's different. You have a story to tell and suddenly you decide to put the death of the sun in Vietnam that takes place in 70s, before the three sons were born, and this is the main part of the film, and in the end, and this is a 3-minute part. So this huge part becomes the flashback of this little scene with the announcement of the death, which in fact is a flash forward in a way, you know. So
do you think film always has to have a linear perspective of time? Because even when you jump around from past to future, there's still a sense of
continuity.
Yeah.
I think what you want to say, whether it's a story or a fairy tale or I don't know, a biopic, still belong to the telling. That's the unity of time. It's from the story. You know what I mean? Linearity or not linearity. A film, let's say, some films, Michael Mann did almost 4-hour films, you know, and you could stand it or not. But I mean, let's say a film cannot last 2 days, like a book you can take and you can accept, to forget a little bit a part of the story and to be reminded, because you have not read the novel for 2 days, so suddenly, oh yeah, yes, it's true. A father died 2 months ago. Yeah, of course, I had forgotten that. You know, in a film, you are given a specific time, and this is, in a way, the unity. It's not lineary. It could happen. It could start in the Big Bang and finish in a Neverland, a place where the dead people meet their parents or whatever, and their grandparents. But I think there is a sort of unity that in that case of Tree of Life, I can say the unity is there in the 50s. All this is the sort of nuclear of the film, and all the rest is sort of how would I say that in English? No, like there is a trunk and branch, you know?
Yes.
Ramification of this story that take place in one summer, you know? Plus, no, a little more than that, because you can see the babies too. But I mean, let's say this is the nuclear situation with hardly no plot. The plot is that the elder son is jealous of his brother, and the father is very strict. The mother is adorable, and the father loses his job. This is the plot.
Mm-hmm.
You will think it's weak for a plot today in a huge American movie with Brad Pitt, Sean Penn, you know, that cost a lot of money. I think the narration made it, the way the story was told, made it enough. Create something that made that small plot very touching, as huge as needed to go back to the Big Bang and the creation of the universe. In a way, it's true. To be jealous of your brother, takes you back to the Big Bang. Why am I on Earth? Why the shit do I have this fucking brother who poisoned my life, you know? You know, things like that. Why do I exist? What will I do? Will I kill him? So I think the freedom is, of course, enormous. That's why, in terms of narrative, it's very important to find not a plot that is full. I love action movies. Huh? It's not that I suggest a type of Terrence Malick story, but I think if you know how to tell that story of those two brothers, it could go back to the Big Bang and to what's after life, if you want.
Did you see that film based on the Tibetan Book of the Dead? What was it called? It's a very psychedelic film. Oh, never mind.
Sorry?
I'm gonna have to look up this film before I ask the question.
It's a film made when?
Recently, it took place in Hong Kong, and it was based on the Tibetan Book of the Dead, and it was a very psychedelic film. Yeah, I'm gonna have to look it up before I can ask the question. But they play around with time and people.
But I remember when Magnolia was released, people were telling, storytelling, you know. But today you realize it's already existed in literature 3,000 years ago. Huh? But of course it has to keep a sort of, if you, doesn't mean, as I said at the beginning, I think the best is to invent a sort of rule that you will, to help you to feel contained in that story, you know. That's very interesting. Not to follow the rule, but to imagine where you will put your rule and try to follow it. So it will give a sort of strength when feeling fragile with a story, and it will give also some clues. Sometimes when I'm completely lost, shall I go there? Shall I go there? If I have invented a sort of rule, then it can give me a clue that, no, I cannot go there because this is exactly what I decide not to do. It's very interesting. There is a French director, long time dead, called Robert Bresson, who always suggests that the less is the best. When you start to give you a strict rule and not to allow myself to go everywhere, to give me the less is the best, and then maybe I will go to the Big Bang. Maybe I will find necessary. But to have this little itinerary, I think, it's a great help. Even if I decide in the end, but I need the Big Bang. And I need a dinosaur. Considering the film, it's a very logical film. If you tell the story of a small family in Texas, their origin is the Big Bang. as far as we know today. Huh?
Based on anthropologies.
They're born from that, from fire, from lava, from explosion. This sweet love of the mother is born from a sort of gigantic volcano, in a way. If we decide the love of a mother is born in the Big Bang, it gives something else to think about sweet love, huh? And death.
And also that those things in the family are as profound as something that is so gigantic as the
Yeah,
Big Bang.
and violent.
Violent, yeah.
Because the jealousy between the two little boys is violent. It's childish, and yet you know, as a spectator, that this violence inside my childhood was like a tornado in my life when I was jealous, or when I was I never felt things like that since, I think,
Yeah.
between brother, sister, mother, father, things that after you survive childhood, you really, it's like coming back from another world, full of pain and sorrows and frustration and willing to kill. I mean, it's not a peaceful world,
It's a
even though it's full of
survivalist.
love.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's not full of, I mean,
Survivalist.
yeah. Whether you believe in God or not, doesn't matter.
I have a few questions if you feel like laying
No.
other directions.
Me, I think it's always interesting to speak about narration because it says more than a finished film. Huh? It's the big bang of film.
Do you look at a lot of video art?
Do I look at a lot of video? A lot. I don't think a lot, but as often as I can, I do.
I feel like video art has a different relationship to time than cinema. And
Exactly.
yeah, there's a lot of exploration in that. And I'm wondering how you see the difference between the two. If you see a difference.
Yes, there is a difference. There is a difference. Video art expresses something in itself, and is produced by a person, as opposed to a film that is semi mixed of artisanal and industrial product, that is not made on the spur on one idea of myself. Sometimes I feel like doing something, I can do it, but I know it's not going to be a film. A film is something I have to share, to finance, to convince, and then in the end, if I'm lucky, the little flame of the beginning will be there. But it's not like video art, a work of my own inspiration. It's something, it's not meaning compromise. Of course there are compromise, but it's made by in an industrial way. I cannot be on my own with my computer or my small camera or even my phone. I've done something with my phone, you know, and you could call that video art, you know. And I like doing that, you know. But and I think if they are exhibited in a museum, or the people will enjoy very much watching them, you know. But filmmaking is slightly different, I think.
There's more of a commitment that the audience has to have, I think.
For video art.
With video art, I feel like I can pass in and out of watching it, especially in an exhibition place.
Yeah, but it's the exhibition system. You know, you don't pay to see a film, and you know, I think it has not the. That's why I always complain here sometimes when the word art or artist is pronounced, because I think it's a difficult thing to judge when you're making something. You cannot say, what are you doing these days? Oh, I'm doing some art, visual art, you know. No. You're playing around with image, you know. Maybe it's art, you know. Who cares? Maybe I like it, maybe I don't. Who cares? You know, film, slightly different, must be at least worth enough to reimburse the money spent.
Right. So you have to function under a lot of different roles. You have to be business person, right? You have to be
Not business. Not business. I have to be interesting for business people.
Mm-hmm.
They have to read a project in me that could make a little money. And I cannot lie too much, because normally there is a result in the end.
So you have to be able to communicate your idea well. That's
Yeah.
the skill. That's the business skill that you're.
Yeah,
That makes sense.
that's why the script is so important. The script is the place where you alone, me alone, or with partners, we discuss and forge and retrieve and change our mind, because it's not very costly and it's a very free moment where everything is possible, from Big Bang to hell, monsters to, like in Uncle Boomy, what happened after life. This is this is the next step. Now it's where money is involved. That's why it's important to. I have a friend. He keeps telling me since the last 2 years. It's a good friend of mine. I don't want anymore to write script. I do not write script anymore. I suffer at night, and in the next morning I have the solution. And I shoot very fast, and it costs less money. And I must say, his films are still great. And he's a famous filmmaker. And I think this is possible too, you know, but he, in a way, he is for the last 10 years building the same film about the relation of a man who also is interpreted by different actors, is also always him, with women, you know? It's a sort of variation of his relation to women. I understand why he enjoys now, after many years, let's say 10, 12 years, to put himself in the risk of not having a script. It's a slightly a lie. I'm sure he has something more. Maybe it's not a script, but this is possible too. If you're working on variation. Huh? The Korean filmmaker I told you the other day. He's going to shoot in 2 weeks, and he keeps telling me he has no story. I know it's slightly a lie because, but he's taking that risk. Yeah, it's partly true. But he's not the only one. Huh? I know French directors like that too.
But it must be difficult to take risks like that at the beginning of one's career, right? Because it'd be hard to find investors or people to back that. So,
and it means that you can only shoot for, let's say, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. You cannot tell people we're going to shoot 3 months and not knowing what we do the next day, because for the people who find location, who make deal with location, they will die, you know. They will be, they can stand that for a short period, you know.
And one more question.
Yeah.
What would you do if money was not a question?
In what sense? If everything was free, like for the Russian
if you could have
filmmaker?
whatever you wanted and you were to, maybe it would be spending the rest of your life making one film. Is there an unrealized project? Is there a dream?
There are dreams, but none of my dreams were, if only I could do what I wanted with no money problem, I will do better film. This never touched my mind, as if I was convinced for my own sake that the money problem is a sort of an obstacle, but that I need, like to be fit. You know what I mean? If I stay in bed all day, I will have a lot of dreams and thinking, but it's good sometimes I have to move my ass, you know. I remember, I realized what happened with Orson Welles. It's true, he was ejected from the Hollywood system, but on one hand, he was so talented, he ejected himself. And what happened in the end? I think a huge pain, you know, a massive. He was banned, but maybe he was banned also a little bit by himself, you know. I think a shrewd guy like Kubrick is really interesting, because Kubrick is very shrewd with money, shrewd with audience, shrewd with to be attractive, and yet be free, you know.
So there's a certain amount of structure that money can provide you, a freedom within the constraint.
There was something in Soviet Union with film director when they were famous, like let's say Tarkovsky or those directors. They were director, so they had their salary whether they were filming or not. Maybe a little more when they were filming. And I remember that story by Tarkovsky when he was filming The Stalker. He somehow something happened in the lab, and almost the entire film they had finished shooting was destroyed, the neck. So he reshoot the entire film with the same actors, same schedule, time, and everything. And of course he suffered a lot because instead of, he had the impression of redoing. So he said it was atrocious to redo. But for a young American director or German or French, probably the film would have never existed. I don't imagine, unless the insurance is so huge to be able to reshoot completely the film. And insurance like that, does not exist in the capitalist world.
Would you shoot the film again?
When he told me that story, I understood the horror of it. But when I was shooting L'Intrus, we shot 1 week in South Korea, the launching of the boat, the massage in the hotel room, a week of shooting, and the neg was somehow something went wrong, was not supposed to be X-rayed by the custom, but was X-rayed and damaged. So damaged that even with digital, they could not restore the grain. And we were poor on that film. We were poor, traveling a lot, but poorly. And I couldn't believe. And then suddenly the commission of South Korean film and my producer, they spoke and they told me less people and 2 days less, and then the film stock will come from South Korea, the same one, Kodak, and the embassy will manage to have your negative protected when you leave. Could you make it? So I said to redo everything. But then I had no choice, and there was a stimulation that I had less days and less people. So I said yes. And redoing and I thought, I told Agnès Godard, doing the camera, I said, I don't know why, if I had imagined something like that would happen to me, I would have decided to change everything. And I told her, we were in the plane, and I told her, I don't know why, I think I'm going to do exactly the same. Because, not because I have no more ideas, but because I have a sort of curious fear that if I'm doomed today, if I try to do something else, maybe I will be doomed twice. So let's do strictly the same and we'll see, Don't try to improvise or no. it was not fun, I must say. Painful, yeah. But not like anti-movie, yeah.
I have two questions.
Yes.
One was, if you feel like it, if you want to talk about the inspiration or the flame that started Trouble in
That's a
the
little bit of a romantic word, but it's because of the Big Bang and the volcano that flame came.
Sometimes it is like you start with one image or something that somebody says on the subway, or like I just was wondering if you had to trace Trouble Every Day to the first kind of conception, where that came from.
Oh, I know. It was not a flame. It was a fire, a oven, or whatever. I was in New York, and I had made a short film with Vincent Gallo, who was not yet an actor, and the man who produced this short film told me, Claire, I am going to produce a collection of gore movies, 6 gore movies, and I would like you to do one. Because I think you have something in you, maybe the longing thing, I don't know, that could be useful. So I said, yes, I will try. And then I surrender. I sort of said, no, I've seen something now in genre movie. I like genre movie and gore movie that were made by people who were not faking. They had no, like Carpenter or people like that, they were making genre movie because they had no access to the big economy of cinema. So they were not faking, They were really doing their films through a genre because it's less expensive. So I said, now you ask me to pretend as a sort of, hey Claire, why don't you make a gore movie? You see what I mean? I said, no, I cannot do that. I have to be sure if I make a gore movie, it has to be terrifying for me. Like something, not like the babysitter who is alone in a house and things like that, which I like in a way, but if I redo that, then it's not fair, for me. So it took me like 10 years to find, and the idea, of course, was to keep Vincent Gallo, and the idea was coming from something I read a long time ago about the Persian, sexual Persian, like to bite and to hurt. And I start around that, Like a mother saying to the baby, oh, you smell so good, I'm going to eat your little feet, This sort of little things, Or to a lover that suddenly you want to bite because there is something unexpressible otherwise, Of course, I took it to the sense that it became a film like that, but that's it. And I think the maid, when he's watching the maid at the beginning and then killing the maid at the end, was probably something I had in mind for a long time, because I think in raping, or there is always something, it's easier when there is a rapport de classe.
You mean the difference in class, or what does rapport?
No, rapport de classe, it means a guy with money in a hotel and a young maid, because if she complains, she can lose her job, you know what I mean? Rapport de classe. How do you say rapport de classe in English? Class?
I guess what a difference in class or
Rapport de classe means...
It's more conversation, right?
Huh?
Conversation, so it's like a dialogue.
No. Rapport de classe. You have social class, huh?
Yeah.
So you have the upper class. So using a maid as a sexual toy is un rapport de classe.
It's the
it's more accepted because there's a consequence to it.
Mm.
And you can have a rapport in English. You have a distinct rapport with a friend or with a
No,
I understand.
rapport de classe is something that when you have a power on someone,
right. But it's an understanding, it's sort of a mutual understanding.
oh, it's not mutual. It's not mutual in a case of a chambermaid rape or kill, you know. I don't understand class differences as something. I understand it exists, but it's not mutual.
I think it depends on who, there's a slave master mentality sometimes, where people accept
Of course,
something that's higher
slave
than
and master mentality is already something slightly different. It's a situation, and you are already the object of the master, you know, and you can decide that you will tell a story when the slave enjoy being the toy of the master. You know, if you read Bataille, or this is, of course, this is something you can fake also. You know, now a rapport de classe, it's different. Is a political situation of where you are in the world. You know, I don't think a chambermaid has a mutual acceptance of being raped in a corridor, you know. She has no time to, for instance, if we take the Oshima film, L'Empire des Sens, the master and the maid. But it takes 1 hour and a half to understand that slowly the maid becomes the master of the master. But this is different. This is exchanging. You see? You have seen that film? You should. You should see. Oshima's films are almost all about that. Il y a aussi le rapport de force. Rapport de force, if I'm stronger than you, you know?
So it's one direction.
I can oblige you because my body is stronger to do something you don't want to do. No? C'est often part of it's often part of film narration, no? Rapport de force, rapport de classe, because it's violent, it's sometimes sexy, you know? And surrendering to it is also sexy, you know? But it means something. You cannot just speak of slave and master as a concept, you know? No, it's something... it's not a concept. It's something you have to physically understand. otherwise it's a poetic concept, you know. I'll be your slave and blah blah blah. It's possible in a relation, but what I'm speaking of is when you have the power to believe you can do something that you wouldn't do to someone of your class.
Mm.
This is a little different, huh?
In class coming up a lot, you also mentioned Stieglitz last time.
Oh, in the class, Stieglitz, yes, because Stieglitz was the guy who sort of, in economy, had a point of view about the depths, the difference between the North and the South, you know. Who hold to who? Because the South might be poor, but was also colonized to take the matière première. How do you say matière première?
First, primary matters.
Yeah, gold, oil, you know. So that's what we meant in the film at that time. It's very naive, but it's true. Who owed to who? Not a big question. It's already partly answered. I mean, you know, the gold belonged to the Inca and no more belonged to the Inca. So I mean, if you look at the world too naively, no, the question is already answered, and it's interesting to change the question to find another answer. I think this is what I believe.
Claire, with the age differences in your films, in thinking about the young people in Friday Night, the hotel clerk, the girl at the pinball machine, there's a sense of them being fairly disenfranchised, a bit petulant. There's the young woman in Nenette and Boni who doesn't want her baby, who's not connected to it at all.
She's a teenager.
Yes.
She's not a woman yet.
Yes. I was just wondering about that. About if you could talk about age difference in your films and the roles that young people play for you in relation to the stories they tell, in relation to your main characters.
Often the difference of age is exists in a story because of a family relation. It's not like a young girl having an old lover. It's more like a family relation.
But there's the young wife of Shane in Trouble Every Day.
Yeah,
She's
but
a-
I mean, Vincent was 39, this actress was 28. I mean, I don't think it's like an old man
No,
who is a
it's
little
not.
girl.
She just looks so naive and fresh compared to his character.
I think some people look fresh and naive a long time, you know. I don't know, I think it's part of the story that she's fresh and naive in France for the first time, very in love. For me, it was not an age difference. No, it was something as if he had a past that he had hid to her.
Yes, which he did.
Mm.
What about
She
the-
was a little bit girlish. Mm. But I think it was not, it was more like a look, it was like, it has more to do with the image of a young American woman arriving in Paris. She's more an an image that a moral figure of femininity abused by men, really, you know. I don't think so. It's not my type of ideas, by the way. I like also when I don't like too much naivety to be part of the psychology. I think she looks naive, she dresses naive. She's not so naive in the end, you know.